A nearly violent surge of primordial energy swept out from Lin Dong's body like an unstoppable tide, wave after wave, drawing the attention of countless onlookers. Under their intense gazes, Lin Dong slowly clenched his fists, feeling the torrential power flooding through him. A satisfied smile tugged at his lips. The great wilderness scripture he now wielded was far stronger than when he had last clashed with Wang Yin. Moreover, his physical body had grown even more formidable, able to contain much more of this violent energy than before. At this moment, his combat prowess had truly reached its peak. "You've really exceeded my expectations," Yuan Song muttered, his gaze fixed on the powerful presence of Lin Dong below. Deep within his eyes, however, a growing intent to kill brewed. The stronger Lin Dong became, the more intense Yuan Song's desire to eliminate him. Enemies with such potential were better erased sooner rather than later. One Zhou Tong incident was enough. No matter what tricks you have, today will be your burial ground. Yuan Song's eyes flashed with icy intent. His primordial energy surged like a raging storm, and with a flick of his hand, a black iron sword appeared. As the sword trembled, countless sharp sword beams shot out like a meteor shower, enveloping Lin Dong. Clearly, Yuan Song could no longer suppress his murderous intent and had decided to strike. However, Lin Dong faced the assault without a hint of fear. Laughing loudly, he waved his sleeve, and the heaven-burning cauldron above him began to spin rapidly. Fierce pillars of flame shot forth, instantly evaporating all the incoming sword energy. "Yuan Song, if you want to kill me, you better show me some real skill. These petty tricks will only tarnish your reputation as the leader of the 3 minor kings of the Yuan sect." Lin Dong sneered, his voice echoing through the sky as he stood atop the heaven-burning cauldron, eyes locked onto Yuan Song. As his mocking words fell, a cold glint flashed in Lin Dong's eyes. With a thought, the heaven-burning cauldron rapidly expanded into a massive cauldron, floating high in the sky. A crimson glow gathered within, forming a fiery formation beneath it. A violent and oppressive energy began to emanate from the cauldron. The heaven-scorching formation? Yuan Song's eyes narrowed as he recognized the formation beneath the cauldron. He knew firsthand how formidable this formation was, having once been trapped within the cauldron himself. Back then, he and his companions had only escaped because the formation hadn't been activated. Now, with Lin Dong fully in control of the heaven-burning cauldron, the situation could become quite troublesome if he was caught in the formation. It won't be that easy. Yuan Song wasn't one to sit idly by. The moment he sensed Lin Dong activating the formation, he charged forward, leaving a trail of afterimages in his wake. In an instant, he appeared before Lin Dong, his black iron sword brimming with enough lethal force to reduce even a peak expert of the 9th Nirvana stage to nothing but a bloody mist. He struck at Lin Dong's throat with lightning speed. Yet, Lin Dong remained calm in the face of Yuan Song's swift assault. With a swift movement of his hand, vast primordial energy surged out, and a tear in space appeared above. From within the void, a gigantic phantom hand reached out. Great wilderness celestial prison hand. The enormous hand descended with an overwhelming force, shattering the air as it slammed down toward Yuan Song. Shying. Feeling the pressure of the violent force bearing down on him, Yuan Song's eyes turned cold. He swung his iron sword with full force, and 100-meter-long sword beam slashed upward like a rainbow, splitting the giant hand in two. Yuan Song's mastery of the minor completion of life mystique stage was now fully on display. Whiz! Just as Yuan Song cleaved through the giant hand, a flash of azure light appeared in his eyes. A ghostly figure darted toward him, fingers splayed like spears, attacking his vital points in a flurry of strikes. Swish! Swish! Azure light finger shadows filled the air, each strike brimming with fearsome power. The force behind them was so intense that even the air itself exploded under the pressure. Courting death. Yuan Song's killing intent surged as he saw Lin Dong daring to engage him in close combat. His iron sword trembled, transforming into a flurry of sword shadows that slashed mercilessly at the incoming finger strikes. Clang! 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 The clash of finger and sword filled the air with the crisp sound of metal striking metal. Sparks flew, stunning the onlookers. What incredible physical strength! Yuan Song's eyes narrowed as his iron sword struck one of Lin Dong's finger shadows. The explosive power at the point of contact made him realize just how terrifying Lin Dong's body had become. Even his heaven-tier sword couldn't gain the upper hand. Roar! As Lin Dong pressed closer to Yuan Song, the azure dragon markings on his skin seemed to ripple to life. A deep dragon roar echoed out, and Lin Dong's body unleashed an onslaught of strikes. Every part of his body, his fists, feet, elbows, and even his head, turned into lethal weapons. His relentless assault was like a raging storm, each strike aimed at Yuan Song's vitals. Boom, boom, boom. The Azure Dragon transformation art had been perfected within Lin Dong's body, making him more formidable than ever. With each movement, a strange roaring sound came from within, the sound of his bones grinding together, unleashing a torrent of power. After the initial embarrassment, Yuan Song quickly regained his footing, not being one to panic easily. Vast waves of primordial energy surged from his body, forming into a massive energy bell that enveloped him. Dong, dong, dong. The giant bell surrounded Yuan Song, but Lin Dong's relentless assault showed no sign of stopping. His strikes, like a torrential downpour, hammered the surface of the bell, filling the air with its constant ringing. Many onlookers stared in shock at the wild barrage. They could feel the terrifying power behind Lin Dong's every punch and kick, their blood boiling from the intensity of the battle unfolding before them. Dong, dong. The bell continued to chime as cracks started appearing on its surface under Lin Dong's frenzied attacks. A sinister gleam flickered in his eyes as his fists grew fiercer. Finally, he roared, "Break!" In that moment, Lin Dong's fist halted briefly, then exploded forward with even greater ferocity. A green dragon mark surged out from his body, transforming into a colossal dragon that crashed heavily into the bell. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed across the sky, accompanied by violent shockwaves. The bell shattered under the countless gazes locked on it, its fragments scattered into the air. The resulting force sent both combatants flying back in disarray. They struggled to regain their footing, taking dozens of steps in midair before stabilizing themselves. Watching this explosive battle, many could not help but click their tongues in amazement. Though this was just the beginning, the ferocity of their exchange already surpassed Yuan Song's previous fight with Cheng Gue. It was clear to everyone that now, the two were truly fighting for their lives. Each move was filled with deadly intent, with no sign of holding back. To think someone could push Yuan Song to this point. This Lin Dong is truly ruthless, someone muttered under their breath. As the battle raged on, Lin Dong finally steadied himself, his body covered in faint white marks, the scars left by Yuan Song's iron sword. Yet these attacks, capable of easily killing a peak 9th Nirvana stage expert, had only managed to leave those marks on him. Now this is more like it, Lin Dong grinned wickedly, twisting his body to shake off the tension. This was the first time he had unleashed his physical prowess so fully. Glancing at Yuan Song, he smiled even more savagely, then turned his gaze to the massive furnace cauldron in the sky. During the time he had kept Yuan Song occupied, the heaven-burning formation beneath the cauldron had fully formed. Let's see how you handle the heaven-scorching formation. Lin Dong laughed coldly. Deep within the alien demon region, the young brothers had been reduced to ashes within this formation. He was confident it would leave Yuan Song in just as much disarray. Whoosh! With that sinister smile still on his face, a crimson light formation descended from beneath the furnace cauldron. Yuan Song's expression darkened as the formation enveloped him. Under countless watchful eyes, the giant flame formation descended from the sky, completely trapping Yuan Song within. A fiery shield formed around the perimeter, sealing him inside. The heaven-scorching formation? From the mountaintop, Ling Qingzhu's eyes flickered with surprise. She clearly recognized this formation from the ancient heaven-burning vault, and its power had left a lasting impression. She hadn't expected Lin Dong to summon it here. She also recognized the furnace cauldron. Having witnessed the terrifying power it wielded in the hands of the man in red robes as he suppressed the black fog creature, she knew Lin Dong couldn't unleash its full potential. But then again, Yuan Tsang's strength was far below that of the black fog creature. This Lin Dong has so many tricks up his sleeve. Even Yuan Tsang is looking a bit overwhelmed, Wu Kun remarked, a hint of admiration in his voice. They all knew how powerful Yuan Tsang was, but so far, Lin Dong had not only held his own, he had even trapped Yuan Tsang in this formation. No one could deny Lin Dong's skill. I told you brother Lin Dong wouldn't be afraid of Yuan Tsang, Su Rou said proudly, though inwardly she breathed a sigh of relief. Despite her confidence in Lin Dong, she had been a little worried. After all, Yuan Tsang was the most outstanding figure among the younger generation in the Eastern Mystery region. Your confidence is not misplaced, but don't celebrate too soon. Do you really think Yuan Tsang is that easy to defeat? Even Chen Gue lost to him. Lin Dong may have many tricks, but beating Yuan Tsang will still be no simple task. Wu Kun shook his head. Yes, Yuan Tsang isn't easy to deal with. Against Chen Gue, I only had a 60% chance of winning, yet Yuan Tsang managed to defeat him. He's clearly hiding some trump cards. It's still too early to say who will win, Ling Qingzhu added, nodding in agreement. Su Rou wanted to argue but found herself agreeing with Ling Qingzhu's words. After a moment of silence, she muttered, but I still believe brother Lin Dong will win. Wu Kun said nothing, wondering why Su Rou regarded Lin Dong as an unbeatable war god. Ling Qingzhu, her veil fluttering slightly, seemed to chuckle softly. Her eyes remained fixed on the distant flame formation. As the flames converged under the countless gazes, Yuan Tsang's expression grew slightly grim. His iron sword trembled, and a fierce sword aura struck the fiery barrier, but it only caused ripples to appear, showing no signs of breaking through. Clearly, this heaven-scorching formation was indeed extraordinary, even managing to trap someone of his caliber inside. With your strength, even if you have the heaven-burning cauldron in hand, how much power can you really unleash from it? Yuan Tsang's gaze turned icy as his failed assault made him calm down. He sneered coldly at Lin Dong from afar. From ancient texts, Yuan Tsang knew that the heaven-burning elder had once killed many powerful figures in ancient times with the heaven-burning cauldron. But it was clear that the Lin Dong of today was far from reaching that level. But it's enough to deal with you, Lin Dong responded with a faint smile. Without wasting more words, his hands formed a seal. The heaven-burning cauldron, suspended in the air, flipped upside down, its lid removed. It began spinning rapidly, and from the cauldron's mouth, an intensely violent and blazing red light rapidly condensed, clearly preparing for a powerful attack. So confident, are you? Then I'll break this formation and see what airs you can put on after that. Yuan Tsang's eyes turned even colder at the sight. His body trembled slightly as vast amounts of primordial energy erupted from him. His fingers arched and pointed toward the sky. Primordial Emperor Codex, Primordial Emperor Swordfinger. A low, commanding shout echoed as Yuan Tsang's fingers moved. In the sky, dazzling light rapidly gathered at his fingertips, forming into an enormous sword of light. His icy gaze flickered, and with a sharp motion of his fingers, the sword, charged with terrifying destructive power, slashed viciously at the fiery barrier. Humph! Lin Dong snorted coldly. He then stepped forward in midair with an intricate footwork, and a vast surge of primordial energy erupted around him. A gigantic silhouette began to take shape behind him. As the figure solidified, an overwhelming battle intent surged forth like a storm, shaking everyone around. Martial Emperor Codex, Destruction Fist. Lin Dong's mystical steps came to an abrupt halt, and with a serious expression, he threw a powerful punch. The giant silhouette behind him followed suit, punching out with a fist that seemed to be formed entirely from battle intent. The massive fist roared down from the sky, clashing violently with Yuan Tsang's sword of light. Boom! A violent wave of energy rippled outward, shaking the fiery barrier, yet it still couldn't break it. Martial Emperor Codex? Yuan Tsang's eyes widened in shock as he looked at the towering silhouette behind Lin Dong, exuding an indomitable battle spirit. There were many ancient treasures in the alien demon region, but only a few were famous. The heaven-burning cauldron was one of them, and another was the martial emperor's ancient treasury. It was said to contain the martial arts perfected by the ancient martial emperor over his lifetime. The Martial Emperor Codex. Such martial arts were said to rival the top 3 great codices of the Yuan sect. Seeing Lin Dong wield this legendary technique left Yuan Song utterly stunned. This bastard! Yuan Song cursed under his breath. Despite his usually calm demeanor, he couldn't help but feel infuriated. How could this guy have such incredible luck? Not only did he possess the heaven-burning cauldron, but now he also had the Martial Emperor Codex, something no one had ever seen before. Lin Dong glanced at Yuan Song, whose face was growing darker by the moment, and a cold smile curled at his lips. He had only just acquired the Martial Emperor Codex, but his martial talent far exceeded that of the Yang brothers. Though he wasn't yet as proficient in it as with the Azure Dragon transforming art, he was already leagues ahead of them. And even though he was still a novice, the raw power of this martial art was already beginning to show. It was clear that in the future, this would become one of his most devastating techniques. Now, feel the full force of the heaven-scorching formation. Lin Dong's gaze lifted, focusing on the heaven-burning cauldron. From its open mouth, an indescribably violent and scorching red light had reached its peak, the terrifying heat warping the space around it. Heaven-burning cauldron. Fire burns the 8 wastelands. Lin Dong's eyes grew cold, and with a change in his hand seals, he pointed sharply at Yuan Song inside the formation. The cauldron trembled, emitting a continuous buzzing sound. Boom! The heaven-burning cauldron didn't tremble for long before an enormous wave of crimson light erupted like a volcanic explosion. It shot forth like a river of molten lava, violently surging towards Yuan Song trapped inside the formation. Boom, boom. Wherever the Crimson River passed, space warped. The terrifying energy fluctuations caused everyone to tremble. Even Lei Qian and Ling Zhan from the Yuan sect couldn't hide the fear in their eyes. They knew that if they were trapped inside this formation, there wouldn't even be ashes left of them. Boom, boom. The Crimson River finally crashed into the heavens, scorching formation, causing it to flicker violently. The heat within intensified to an unbearable degree, and Yuan Song's figure was quickly swallowed by the light. Condense! Lin Dong shouted, his hand clenching into a fist. The fiery energy within the formation rapidly cooled, turning solid like magma, and in an instant, it transformed into a massive stone of molten rock, hundreds of feet tall, pinning Yuan Song beneath it. Victory! The disciples of the Dao sect erupted into cheers, elated beyond measure. Pang Tong and the others trembled with excitement. EngShao and the others exchanged glances. Is it over? The mountain peak fell into silence as Wu Kun gazed up at the sky, disbelief written all over his face. Ling Qingzhu's brows furrowed slightly, her eyes locked onto the massive rock formation below. Suddenly, her pupils contracted, and she slowly shook her head. Not yet. What a tough opponent. At the same time, Lin Dong in the sky murmured softly. Just as his voice fell, tiny cracks began to spread from deep within the rock formation. In the next instant, blinding light burst forth, and the entire rock exploded, sending shards flying in all directions. Lin Dong swiftly retreated, and with a wave of his hand, the heaven-burning cauldron landed at his feet. His gaze darkened as he stared into the dazzling light, from which a ragged figure, brimming with murderous intent, emerged. To force me to this point, Lin Dong, among the younger generation of the Eastern Mystery region, you are the first. The voice, filled with chilling malice, spread across the sky. All eyes turned to see none other than Yuan Song stepping out from the void. Lin Dong's gaze locked onto Yuan Song, and his attention immediately shifted to the symbol glowing on Yuan Song's forehead. The mystical rune flickered with a piercing light, far clearer now than when he had fought Chen Gue. Its appearance did not go unnoticed, and soon, gasps of astonishment echoed through the crowd. A spirit seal? Lin Dong exhaled deeply, his expression turning completely grave. He hadn't expected Yuan Song to possess such a formidable hidden ace. Lin Dong was no stranger to the spirit seal. Back when he participated in the 100 Dynasties War, Su Rou had obtained one, and just a few days ago, Ling Qingzhu had also acquired a spirit seal at the bottom of the Taiching immortal pool. Even Lin Dong, with his composed nature, couldn't help but covet the spirit seal. Only the most powerful individuals could form a spirit seal upon their death, infusing it with their life's energy. In essence, it was a rare type of treasure born from the heavens and earth, though one that required a human as its foundation. Spirit seals have no consciousness, typically seeking out the individual most compatible with them. For instance, the spirit seal in the Taiching immortal pool chose Ling Qingzhu instead of Lin Dong, much to his frustration. Although he could have forcibly taken it, treasures gained through coercion often fail to reach their full potential. While the holder of a spirit seal couldn't compare to a reincarnation stage warrior, the advantage lay in the seal's abundance. Even in ancient times, reincarnation stage warriors were exceedingly rare. In fact, Lin Dong had only ever encountered one, Huan. However, spirit seals were far more numerous. Yet acquiring one required immense fortune, something that Lin Dong, despite years of yearning, had never managed to obtain. The energy contained within a spirit seal is vast and pure. As the owner grows in power, the energy gradually integrates into their body, significantly accelerating their cultivation compared to ordinary people. Moreover, in critical moments, the owner can unleash the seal's power to temporarily boost their strength, fending off strong enemies or escaping peril. It was said that in regions larger than the Eastern Mystery region, spirit seals were even auctioned off at prestigious events. But acquiring one would come at a terrifying price. This scarcity of spirit seals made Lin Dong's shock all the more understandable when he saw the rune glowing on Yuan Tsang's forehead. I can't believe Yuan Tsang also possesses a spirit seal. On the mountain peak, Wu Kun's expression turned envious as he gazed skyward. He then glanced at Su Rou beside him, knowing that even within the Nine Heavens Taiching Palace, she was someone of significant standing, and like Yuan Tsang, she also possessed a spirit seal. No wonder he's risen to become one of the top young elites in the Eastern Mystery region. With the aid of a spirit seal, it's really unfair. Su Rou's small face darkened with frustration. As a fellow spirit seal owner, she knew just how beneficial it was to a cultivator. Yuan Tsang had clearly activated his spirit seal's power, putting Lin Dong in a dangerous predicament. Wu Kun glanced at Su Rou's indignant expression and couldn't help but smile wryly. Didn't she realize she had a spirit seal herself? In this world, absolute fairness was a rare thing. Having the fortune to gain a spirit seal was a testament to one's strength. But now, it looks like Lin Dong is in real danger. Wu Kun looked up at the distant figure standing atop the heaven-burning cauldron, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Regardless of the outcome, Lin Dong's reputation would surely spread throughout the Eastern Mystery region. To force Yuan Tong, who had reached minor completion of the life mystique stage, to use his spirit seal while only being at the 8th Nirvana stage was truly impressive. Nearby, a faint trace of concern flickered in Ling Qingzhu's clear eyes. Though Lin Dong had many tricks up his sleeve, the gap in power between him and Yuan Tsang was undeniable. If not for the great wilderness scripture absorbing the life force of the surrounding area, he wouldn't have been able to hold his ground this long. Now that Yuan Tsang had unleashed his final trump card, activating the spirit seal and greatly boosting his power, Lin Dong's situation appeared grim. The entire battlefield was thrown into turmoil by the emergence of Yuan Tsang's spirit seal. Even the Dao sect disciples, like EngSubs, who had been brimming with hope, were now filled with anxiety. The sudden shift in momentum was too drastic. So, he's been forced to bring it out at last. Ling Zhun gazed at the sky, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Earlier, even against Chen Kuei, our leader only used a trace of the spirit seal's power. But now, with its full force unleashed, Lin Dong is undoubtedly doomed, Lei Qian sneered. When Lin Dong is dealt with, the Dao sect will collapse completely. I didn't get to kill enough earlier, but now I'll have all the justification I need to slaughter as many as I want. This time, I'll make sure the Dao sect disciples tremble in fear whenever they see one of us from the Yuan sect. Lei Qian laughed, his voice brimming with twisted bloodlust. The surrounding Yuan sect disciples, hearing this, also had a vicious gleam in their eyes, grinning maliciously in agreement. A spirit seal! How unexpected! Lin Dong murmured, standing in the sky. He looked at Yuan Tsang in the distance, where a glowing rune shimmered at his forehead. So, what kind of death should I give you? Yuan Tsang asked, patting his torn clothes. His appearance was rather disheveled, which only deepened the killing intent in his eyes. He locked his gaze on Lin Dong, smiling coldly. Lin Dong's eyes flashed with a cold light as well. Before he could reply, his pupils suddenly contracted, and he darted backward with great speed. Swish! As Lin Dong retreated, the space in front of him distorted. A ghostly figure shot forward, an iron sword in hand, emitting a sharp and deadly aura that streaked toward Lin Dong's throat like a bolt of lightning. Yuan Tsang's speed had grown significantly, faster than before. With his sword slicing through the air, Lin Dong had no time to evade. Crossing his arms in front of his throat, he braced himself. Escalation! The iron sword slashed across Lin Dong's arms. This time, there were no sparks, only a deep gash appeared on his arm, and blood began to flow. Clearly, Yuan Tsang's strength had surged dramatically after activating the spirit seal. His attacks had become so fierce that they could now breach Lin Dong's once impenetrable defenses. Lin Dong used the momentum to retreat once more. Glancing at the wound on his arm, he felt a sharp pain but deemed it non-fatal. If not for the recent advancements in his Azure Dragon transformation art, Yuan Tsang's attack might have crippled his arm entirely. Let's see how many more of my strikes you can block. Yuan Tsang smeared the blood from his sword with his fingers, lifting his head to give Lin Dong a menacing smile. His eyes grew even colder as he transformed into a blur, launching another assault. Lin Dong's body shuddered as wings of the Azure Dragon unfurled from his back, propelling him backward at great speed. Swish! Just as Lin Dong retreated, a massive sword beam, spanning dozens of feet, slashed the spot where he had stood. Yuan Tsang materialized again, his strikes raining down without pause. In the sky, one was in relentless pursuit, while the other desperately fled. Even Lin Dong, with all his skill, struggled to keep up against the spirit seal-enhanced Yuan Tsang. The battle clearly favored Yuan Tsang, who now had the upper hand. The Yuan sect disciples below erupted in laughter. Some even mocked the Dao sect disciples, whose faces flushed with anger. Is he planning to run forever? Wu Kun, watching from below, couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. Lin Dong's speed was impressive, and even Yuan Tsang, in this empowered state, struggled to kill him. But could this escape tactic last? Ling Qingzhu furrowed her brow slightly, her gaze locked on Lin Dong, who continued to retreat under Yuan Tsang's relentless pursuit. Her eyes sharpened suddenly, and she shook her head, whispering, "It seems he's preparing something." Wu Kun blinked in confusion, then questioned doubtfully, "You think he still has a trump card? Even if he does, can it really defeat Yuan Tsang with the spirit seal?" Ling Qingzhu bit her lip. She wasn't entirely sure. However, based on her understanding of Lin Dong, he wasn't the type to act without a plan. If he was making a move, it meant he had something in mind, though whether it would work remained to be seen. "Is this all you've got? Just running? What happened to your earlier bravado?" Yuan Tsang sneered from above as another of his strikes missed. His face darkened with anger as he mocked Lin Dong. Yet Lin Dong didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, his hand, hidden in his sleeve, trembled slightly. "If you're so keen on running, let's see where these Dao sect disciples will hide." A sinister glint flickered in Yuan Tsang's eyes. He suddenly shifted, swinging his arm to unleash a massive, sharp sword aura toward the Dao sect disciples below. With his current power, none of them could withstand such an attack. As the Dao sect disciples saw it coming, their faces turned pale with fear. EngSubs' face also darkened. She gritted her teeth and was about to intervene when a slender figure appeared in the sky, taking the full brunt of the sword strike. Escalation! A long, bloody gash stretched from Lin Dong's shoulder to his abdomen. Blood dripped from the wound, making him look particularly battered. "Senior brother Lin Dong." The Dao sect disciples cried out in alarm, their fists clenched tightly, eyes reddening with fury. "How brave!" Yuan Tsang mocked, watching with cruel amusement. His voice turned icy. Now, let's see if you can keep running. No need to run. Lin Dong, despite Yuan Tsang's chilling gaze, merely twisted his body, glancing at his wound indifferently. Then he raised his head, looked at Yuan Tsang, and grinned. His smile filled with a grim, menacing edge. Lin Dong let out a sinister smile, then thrust his palms forward. A mysterious light formation appeared in his hands. Biting his tongue, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence, which landed on the formation. Within moments, it expanded rapidly, transforming into a massive array hundreds of meters wide, covering both the sky and the earth. A ripple that seemed to stir the very soul began to spread outward. The massive array blanketed the sky, and Lin Dong's face grew pale. He looked up, his eyes glowing with a crimson hue, staring menacingly at Yuan Tsang. His cold, emotionless voice echoed through the air. I told you. I'll make everyone from Yuan sect pay with their lives for the Dao sect brothers who died. As the massive array stretched across the sky, countless intricate light beams intertwined within it, radiating an ancient and cryptic aura. This formation was undoubtedly far more complex than the heaven-scorching formation from earlier, and its subtle ripples struck fear into many hearts. This was the ancient cosmic formation, and this time, it was far more terrifying than any previous attempt by Lin Dong. What is this formation? Wu Kun stared in shock at the array that now enveloped the heavens. Even though the formation had not fully activated yet, he could already sense the danger it posed. How can this guy summon such a complex formation at will? There's no way he could create something like this on his own, someone muttered in disbelief. Ling Qingzhu, her gaze locked on the pale-faced youth in the distance, softly whispered, he must have the prototype of the formation, so all he needs is enough primordial energy to activate it. But the energy consumption for something like this must be terrifying. Ling Qingzhu could sense Lin Dong's rapidly weakening aura. Even though he had absorbed the life energy from a radius of several dozen miles with the Great Wilderness Scripture, it was clear that summoning such a vast formation was still taxing for him. What is that thing? Ling Zhan and Lei Qian, like the others, were visibly shaken by the sudden appearance of the colossal formation. Its complexity far surpassed the heaven-scorching formation from before, leaving even their sharp eyes unable to identify its nature. Although Lin Dong had used the ancient cosmic formation in the past, the scale of this one was 10 times larger, making it unrecognizable to Ling Zhen and the others. This brat? He's really a tough one, Ling Zhen muttered, biting his lip. For some reason, an unsettling feeling began to gnaw at him. Gather everyone together, Ling Zhen ordered after a moment of hesitation. What's wrong? Lei Qian asked, frowning. Something doesn't feel right? Ling Zhan's sense of unease intensified, his gaze fixed on the massive array in the sky, which made him feel as though he was sitting on pins and needles. Do you really think that brat can wipe out all the disciples of Yuan sect for those Dao sect weaklings? Lei Qian grumbled, his brow furrowing. But after seeing the grave look on Ling Zhan's face, he hesitated for a moment before signaling the nearby Yuan sect disciples to gather around. Ling Zhan felt a slight sense of relief as he watched the disciples congregate. However, his eyes remained dark and vicious as he looked skyward, muttering under his breath, I'll see what tricks you have up your sleeve. Your tricks, they're quite something, aren't they? Up in the sky, Yuan Tsang raised his head, his cold eyes locking onto Lin Dong. His voice was dripping with disdain. But if you think this will be enough to defeat me, you're dreaming. Yuan Tsang's eyes glinted with malice as he stepped forward. A glowing spirit seal appeared on his forehead, and an overwhelming force surged out from within him, nearly reaching the pinnacle of the minor completion of life mystique stage. Let me show you just how laughable your so-called trump card is. A vast surge of primordial energy roared out from Yuan Tsang's body, forming a massive energy figure behind him, over 100 meters tall. The immense pressure radiating from this figure was terrifying. Primordial Emperor Codex, Primordial Emperor form. With a cold shout, Yuan Tsang made a sword gesture with his fingers and slashed down. Boom! As Yuan Tsang's sword finger cut through the air, the energy figure behind him also raised its colossal hand. A fearsome wave of energy shot out, slicing toward the massive formation in the sky with destructive force. Bang, bang, bang. The terrifying shockwaves erupted, shaking the air itself. Continuous rumbling explosions echoed across the sky as Yuan Song's overwhelming attack barreled forward. Even the strongest warriors at the peak of the 9th Nirvana stage felt a chill from the residual force. Lin Dong's eyes grew icy as he witnessed this scene. His hands shifted through rapid seals, and the formation in the sky began to move. Huh? Why is the formation rotating in reverse? Has Lin Dong lost his mind? The formation's reverse rotation did not go unnoticed by sharp observers, prompting murmurs of confusion. Yet Lin Dong ignored the voices rising around him. As the formation spun in reverse, a strange beam of light began to condense at its center. The beam of light condensed into a shape, barely a foot wide. It emitted no overwhelming energy, yet when Lin Dong saw it, a faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. He pointed his finger in the air, and that beam suddenly roared downward. Under countless gazes, it collided with the massive shadow formed by primordial energy. Hiss. When the two forces met, there was no expected thunderous boom, nor was there any stalemate. As the light passed through, the massive primordial energy shadow disintegrated at a terrifying speed, dissolving into nothingness. The beam streaked across the sky, and everyone watched in shock as the giant energy shadow was pierced straight through. It was as if nothing could stop that light. What? Yuan Song's face finally changed color. He could sense that wherever the light passed, even the primordial energy of the heavens was being reduced to nothing. What in the world is that? A trace of panic finally rose in Yuan Song's heart. He immediately retreated, narrowly avoiding the oncoming beam of light. Whoosh! The light flashed past him and struck a Yuan sect disciple below, swift as lightning. Hiss! The beam shot down, and to everyone's horror, the disciple's entire body vanished into thin air, without leaving a single trace of flesh or blood. Rustle! The space around that disciple immediately cleared, as all the Yuan sect disciples stared at the scene in terror. A chilling fear crept into their hearts. Seeing the terror on the Yuan sect disciples' faces, a faintly bloodthirsty smile appeared on Lin Dong's pale young face. Deep within his eyes, a crazed killing intent began to surge. Lin Dong, you're courting death. Yuan Song's pupils shrank. Staring at Lin Dong's face, a chill crept into his own heart. He immediately shouted in a low, cold voice. Lin Dong seemed to chuckle at his words. Then, suddenly, he slapped his chest hard. A mouthful of blood sprayed from his mouth and flew into the great formation in the sky. As Lin Dong's blood was absorbed into the ancient cosmic formation, a light curtain began to descend, eventually enveloping all the Yuan sect disciples, including Yuan Song. Lin Dong, what are you doing? Are you trying to start a war between Yuan sect and Dao sect? Ling Zhan's expression changed drastically as he shouted angrily. In this place, anything is allowed. Wasn't that what you all believed before? Lin Dong's pale face carried a faint smile in response to Ling Zhan's roar. But that smile, seen by the Yuan sect disciples, sent chills down their spines. I told you, I would make sure you all perish. In the sky, Lin Dong looked down at the Yuan sect disciples, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and in a voice soft yet filled with exhaustion, he spoke words that made everyone's scalp tingle. They looked at his pale face, with that eerie smile, and finally realized Lin Dong truly intended to kill every single Yuan sect disciple. This guy is a madman. A bone-chilling fear crawled up everyone's spine, shooting straight to their heads. This guy,